Welcome to the August 2020 garden tour. As you can see, things are starting to get a little brown and toasty. There are some changes. We have inherited a vine. I don't know what it is. It'll be interesting to see. And this is the path side of Shabby Versailles right here. I'm going to turn that barberry into a topiary as time permits. And then from seed, I have managed to get 2 healthy Cracker Jack marigolds growing. I don't know what this is. It's a type of wildflower. The thug is blooming again. And look at these China daisies. They're so pretty. It's just a little annual flower. Oh my gosh, they really just caught my eye. Here's a wildflower from the wildflower mix that my daughter sent me. Looks like it's opening. And we recently hung the fuchsia over here. The hummingbirds like it on this side of the Shabby Versailles end of the garden, so we moved it. I do not recall if I had included this in the last video or not, but we tied up the serviceberry because it was leaning real far out into the yard and in the garden, and it needed to be tied. So we're going to see how it works. There's the limelight. I have cut the peonies back right here. You can see the canes kind of standing up there. And at some point I'm going to be moving that daylily. I can't really see what I'm pointing at. Just random pointing now. These, of course, are the gladiolas that are finally, I believe they're at a stage where they might actually produce flowers, hoping. And we just recently added that lavender. We have a raccoon who continually knocks this over and finally broke the yellow plate that was on top. So I replaced it yesterday, and then I kind of dug the little foot part of the fountain into the dirt. Hopefully that'll help. Stop! Looks like I have another tigridia just about to bloom right there. I really can't believe that the pansies are still just in full flush. I think the heat will eventually get to them. The begonias are doing better down here in the Shade Palace. I gave this euonymus a haircut. Of course, the Gara is still just blooming its head off. I still don't have any lupin, but I see that they have some flower looking stems coming up, so that should happen pretty quickly. And the little glen, it's always nice and cool back in here. The birds just love to kind of hop around, and then they come up here and play in the bird bath. I refresh the bird bath every morning. And then there's Big Daddy. Beautiful blue hydrangea blooms. Unless you forget that it's a big hydrangea and you look out your kitchen window and think somebody's tarp has blown into your yard. True story. That actually happened to me. Looks like the neighbor has some wisteria coming on. The kiwi is kind of suffering. That's the big plant in the corner right there. I'm not sure if it's just not getting enough water or what the deal is. It's been fertilized. I don't know. Kind of keeping an eye on it. And then the Fatsia, which is the light green right there, has grown since I gave that euonymus a haircut, and I also tidied up underneath as well. I'm trying to keep these plants from getting a powdery mold or white mold, which they typically do since we end up getting so much rain. And then the daisies, they're quite happy hanging on the fence here. This is on the front porch. Begonias and pansies. And that is a sweet Caroline potato vine, and I don't know if that's a super petunia variety or just a regular petunia. I'm not sure. Looks like something crashed into my azalea. It was probably a deer. We have them here. But the impatiens are really, really happy. And then in the middle I have the 2 cordalis and 1 gara. Alrighty, so I basically interviewed my sister to get the feedback from her on their pond management. I sent her 2 pond test kits. I will pop those up on the screen. I currently don't have the name. I can't remember what they were, but while I'm talking about it, I'll pop it up on the screen. One was this company's test strips, and it was a pack of 25 strips. And the other one was called Wide Range, and it was a test tube kit that would test 160 times. So one is strips for 25 tests, and one is a test tube for 160 times. Both of those basically suggest that you test once a week when you're first starting out testing your pond. Both of them are rated for garden ponds on up to larger size ponds. She has a 3-acre pond. She said that she found the test strips to be the easiest to use, while the test tube kit was the most accurate of the 2. Now, the other one was somewhat accurate. It wasn't like completely off, but the strips just weren't quite as accurate as the test tube. So the way the test tube works is you have the test tube filled with pond water only. So if you scrape along the bottom of the pond, you're going to get silt and other pond matter that can completely change the outcome for your pH test. So you strictly want to use water. So that's true with both of these tests. She is not physically able to bend down to the level of her pond. They don't have walkout beach area on this pond. So the only other option that she has is to have a clean bucket, and by clean, that basically means never used for anything else ever. It has been scrubbed clean so that it is just very clean and doesn't have any oil, dirt. Dirt can change the pH reading. So no dirt, no anything else in the bucket, and she uses the bucket to carefully scoop strictly water from the pond. And then for both of those tests, it comes from the bucket. So the test strip, you simply dip it into the water straight up and down. You don't slide it through the water. You don't dip it down and then turn it, you know, it's just straight up, straight down into the water and then right back out of the water. And then the test tube you fill with pond water. She uses the bucket, and then you drop 5 drops of the reagent into the test tube. The results on both are immediate. The strip, she said, takes about 30 seconds, and the test tube is literally just immediately. You will see the change in either the strip or the water in the test tube. So since she's not able to bend down, that is a constraint that she would have with basically any test at all. So we're giving them both a score of the same on the easiest. As far as getting the water, using a bucket isn't that difficult. And using the water from the bucket for both tests is equally easy. So there's not a clear winner in that particular test. So the instructions, she said, my memory card got full, I had to switch them out. So we were on the instructions. She said the strips, the 25 test strips, those instructions were far more complicated to follow than the test tube. Basically, fill the test tube, drop in 5 drops of the reagent, you're good to go. But there were a lot of instructions on those strips. She said having to wear glasses to read made that even more fiddly and difficult, so it gets the low score on the instructions and the readability. And as I said earlier, it basically tells you in the instructions on both that you have to have access to the pond. You need to be able to raise the pH to neutral, and neutral for most garden ponds would be between 6.8 and 7.0. So if it's too acid or too low, then you need to add lime, and the lime that you need to add should be pelletized. Basically because the pulverized lime is messy. You really want that pelletized lime. The amount of lime you add is going to vary depending on the size of your pond. You need 7 pounds of lime per acre, and that is 1 part per million, and you're going to do that every 3 days. However, you're going to test on the 3rd day to see if you need to raise or just let it go. Basically what happens is if you put too much lime at once, you can reduce the oxygen in your pond, and if you have fish, it will harm or kill them. So you need to let that 3 days pass, test the pond, and then if the pH is still off and you need to add more lime, then you would do it at that point. And the easiest way to add lime is to get in the pond. So if you have a boat, you can row around and throw the pond or throw the lime into the pond. If you don't, then you'd have to walk around with the 7 pounds of lime and just toss it into the water from the edge. So basically what we decided on both of those 2 tests is that ideally you would use the test tube, and I believe it is the most cost effective. Not only was the cost less to start out with, but you also get to check your pond 160 times. The other test is 25 strips, and the cost out the gate was higher. So test tube wins in that particular little contest. And as I said, when I put this video up, I will edit to include the photos of the 2 tests and the amounts so that you will have that information as well. This is ideally the time that you want to go ahead and check your pH and make sure everything is good before winter hits. So let me know in the comment section if you have any questions about this. Anything else in this particular video that you might have questions about, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.